Climate activist Greta Thunberg has returned to protest.
Time Magazine Person of the Year, the youngest in their history.
Overwhelming support for Greta Thunberg.
At 16 years of age, she has become the face of the climate change fight.
She's hijacking the news cycle through hashtags, viral moments.
Taking on climate change head on, pulling no punches. Her passionate speeches have drawn attention all over the world.
People are concerned that the premise of your school strike was never actually the innocent thing that it was. Did Reinshog accidentally run into you, or was it orchestrated by your parents well beforehand? I'm allowed to do this. Where are we? Hong Kong? China? No, this is Sweden.
Do you have ID?
Why are people who are critical of Greta not allowed to be anywhere near the action? Hey, what are you doing? Don't touch me.
You don't want to tell the world who's paying you?
Nobody has bothered to dig deep into the rise of her messiahhood until now. If someone starts to pull that one thread, then it will all come collapsing down. Who do you think you are? I'm asking questions.
Yes.
I want to ask Greta some questions.
Yes.
Don't touch me. What are you doing? You apologize for hitting me?
Hitting you?
Yes.
Bullshit.
You punched me in the gut 3 times. Your hands on me wasn't a part of this. You didn't need to be a part of this. You could have left me alone. Turned out fine, didn't it? You could have left me alone. You didn't, and it's gonna blow back on you. How does a 15-year-old girl bewitch the world? She doesn't, at least not alone. Greta Thunberg's rise to fame over the course of several months is not nearly as innocuous as it might appear from the outside. Rather, Greta's rise was facilitated by elites from around the world. The campaign to canonize Greta as a saint in the eyes of the world's leftist zoomers and boomers alike was coordinated, it was orchestrated and executed nearly flawlessly. Nobody has bothered to dig deep into the rise of her messiahhood until now. I've just landed in Stockholm, Sweden to do just that, to expose the lies that Greta's handlers have built her movement on. Chinks in Greta's armor only began to appear after she had bewitched the world, not before. Greta's sadistic side was exposed when she told her raging supporters that the movement needed to put their opponents against a wall.
World leaders are still trying to run away from their responsibilities. But we have to make sure that they cannot do that. We will make sure that we put them against the wall.
Many started to compare her to a modern-day Mao, firing squads and all. But that's not her only Maoist trait. This has been unreported so far, but Rebel News has learned that while Greta was on her intercontinental field trip, Greta had elite, low-profile security that would train kids to act as hidden security to maintain her innocent image. Just like Mao's Red Guard, Greta had a Green Guard. It's not just the authoritarian side of Greta that nobody sees, it's the hypocritic side as well. Remember Greta's Tesla filled to the windows with plastic utensils, grocery bags, water bottles, and imported goods? Well, Greta doesn't want you to see that. She doesn't want you to ask any other questions about her questionable rise to fame. Unfortunately for her and for the people behind her, that is exactly why I came to Sweden. To ask questions that the mainstream media won't. Specifically, I want to ask Greta about the school she's allegedly striking from. The world is under the impression that Greta was a regular student who walked out of class on a Friday. What we have learned is that Greta's education regime isn't really what most people assume it is. Greta, whose childhood has been characterized by severe eating, speaking, and socializing disorders, was actually sent to a school for kids with special needs. This school, Kringla Skola it's called here, doesn't actually have attendance requirements like a regular school does. When the pupils are not feeling well or are sick or are having an episode, well, they're not required to come to class at all. Rather, the parents can keep them at home or take them on an excursion as long as they bring their textbooks. If that is the case for Greta, if she doesn't really have to be in the classroom, she isn't really on a school strike, is she? Her whole viral movement is based on a lie. Luckily, tomorrow is one of Greta's trademark school strikes. I'm going to go there and ask her questions right to her face. Right now, though, I'm going to go check into my hotel and touch base with my publisher, Ezra, and see what else is on the schedule.
No, it's a big assignment, but I found a friend in Sweden who we've worked with before. She's an investigative journalist named Annika Rothstein. Now, in the past, she's reported for us from Venezuela in the middle of their uprising, so she's very courageous. If she's willing to stare down Nicolas Maduro, I think that she can stare down the political correctness in Stockholm. But I'm not completely kidding. We've seen pictures of Greta Thunberg and her mom and dad wearing Antifa clothing. Now that could just be, them acting butch, or maybe they really are backed up by those violent street gangs of the left that are pretty active in Europe. So be careful. Annika's got a good sense of things. She survived Maduro's thugs. She can survive anything Greta has. But I think the number one job for you, Kian, is to ask the questions that the mainstream media won't, and to accept the answers wherever the facts may lead. Is Greta really on a school strike, or is that just some fake backstory? Is her entourage a big corporate PR agency, or is she really living the creed? And finally, if you can find out more about her origins as a global superstar, especially this Ingmar Renshaug, I think those are three big questions that the entirety of the media party has never asked. So it's a big job, but I think you're up for it.
So with that, my cameraman and myself packed up and headed to downtown Stockholm to meet up with Annika, a reporter on the ground who knows lots about the Greta Thunberg saga. We started out at the parliamentary campus, where Greta Thunberg's school strikes originally began. This is the pedestrian walkway surrounding the Swedish parliament, and it is the exact location where Greta Thunberg started staging her alleged school walkouts on August 20th, 2018. It is the exact location where Ingmar Renshaug coincidentally, or at least we're supposed to believe, he just happened to walk by Greta Thunberg on the first few minutes of her very first school strike. Ingmar Renshaug is a financial investor and public relations specialist who just dropped off his son some few kilometers away for kindergarten on his way to work. Now, this location is nowhere near the most likely route of travel, and it's kind of hard to believe that he accidentally stepped off of the metro, walked a few kilometers to get here, and then went back to the metro and then went to work. And it was all a coincidence. It was all a happenstance. That's what they want us to believe. I don't buy it. It was right here at this very spot where Greta Inc. was originally founded. It is right here where the entire saga began, the saga to kickstart a global leftist icon. And we're supposed to believe that it was all a coincidence. It was all an accident. Now, on the day, August 20th, when Greta was found by Ingmar Renshaug, a friendship and business partnership was formed. Very shortly after, Greta was added to an advisory role on Ingmar Renshaug's company, the Facebook for Environmentalists, We Don't Have Time. Ingmar Renshaug used Greta's image to promote his company and make a boatload of cash. Now, Greta says adamantly that she didn't profit from that, but Ingmar, well, he sure did. Now, everybody wants to know what the motivation is behind the people at Greta Inc. and the people pulling the strings. Well, Greta Thunberg's motivation and that of her family was admitted on BBC Radio. Greta Thunberg's father went on BBC and said that her activism is a Xanax of sorts to fix her depression, her selective mutism, and her eating disorders. Listen to him.
I mean, I have two daughters, and to be honest, they're all that matters to me. I just want them to be happy. And I can see Greta is very happy from doing this, and I saw where she was before. I mean, she didn't speak to a single person. She could only eat in her own home. And when she went on this school strike, and I think day 3, someone came along and gave her like pad thai vegan, and she ate it, and that was like, I cannot explain how much what a change that meant to her and to us. And it was just like, she changed. And she could do things that she could never have done before. And now she's just like any other. You think she's not ordinary now because she's special and she's very famous and all these things. But to me, she's now an ordinary child. She can do all the things like other people can. And she's happy. She dances around, she laughs a lot, we have a lot of fun, and she's in a very good place.
Now, while this activism is curing Greta Thunberg's depression and mental illness, it's sparking mental illness in youth around the world. Depression has skyrocketed among young people. Many young folks think that the world is ending and life is just not worth living. But I guess that's the price to pay for Greta Thunberg's family.
So when I was 11, I became ill. I fell into depression. I stopped talking and I stopped eating. In 2 months, I lost about 10 kilos of weight. Later on, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, OCD, and selective mutism.
Now, it's obvious that Greta Thunberg is going to have her selection of whatever Ivy League university she wants to go to, and she'll be making her fortune in due course. But right now, the people making the money are the folks pulling the strings of Greta Inc. It's the people like Al Gore and the industry behind him, the speaking circuits for these green elites around the world. It's the green lobby, it's the green tech that are making the money, putting Greta up on a pedestal to spark this movement so that they can make the bucks.
Would you be able to tell me, you're Greta Thunberg security, who's paying you?
No, I don't want to.
You don't want to tell the world who's paying you?
No, because I don't think the world needs to know who's paying me. So
she demands electric vehicles. She demands that she takes a boat across the ocean, but her security team can drive a gasoline-powered vehicle.
You're a funny guy. No comments.
All right, it's okay. Don't touch me though. Thank you.
Sure, Greta has pulled the wool over our eyes, or at least Greta Inc. has. The people behind her have said, have set this up in a way that looks, in retrospect, really orchestrated, pre-planned out, and there are some people maybe financially benefiting from it even. But people do this kind of thing all the time, these public stunts. It happens all the time. What is the more insidious side of this?
Yeah, I would say that, sure, this is a cynical PR plot on the face of it, but what's behind it is interesting and, in my mind, a little bit scary. Because we know for a fact that the person who inspired, or rather told Greta to start this school strike, is the founder of Extinction Rebellion here in Sweden. This is a guy that has very, very clear political policies. So he has a strategy. We know that he planned this strategy when he sent out a mass email saying that, oh, we need a youthful face to sort of boost the idea, these methods that we're working on, because no one listens to a guy in a suit, so we need a cute young face to promote this political environmentalist agenda. He then reaches out to Greta and tells her that, oh, I had my daughter do this school strike a year ago and that worked really well. Why don't you do this? And she does.
And he said, if I remember correctly, he said his daughter was inspired, or it was his daughter who was inspired by Parkland students. And Greta has said that she was also inspired by Parkland students. So you can see the line sort of drawing between these two. And also on the file of Extinction Rebellion, Greta has said she's giving money to them too.
Yeah, and she went, a lot of times people will plead, the team behind Greta will just plead ignorance and be like, oh, a lot of people like to associate with her, but she has no opinion either way. In this case, this came directly from her own Twitter account, which they claim she runs on her own, where she did this musical collaboration. She was wearing an Antifa shirt at the time. I think a lot of people have seen this photo because members of her family also wore these Antifa shirts, and it was because of this musical collaboration she was doing with a musical group that had to do with environmental issues. And I think the issue of privilege is one that isn't discussed enough when it comes to Greta. As we know from pictures taken inside her house, they have furniture that, you know, someone like me could only dream of owning. And her family is extremely well off, and she does not know true hardship, even with her disabilities. If you claim an adult stage, if you're saying that, okay, I'm going to speak on the world stage about these very, very serious issues, you have to be able to not have it be a monologue, but a dialogue. And I think that she has only reached the monologue stage, unfortunately, and it's time to make this conversation about climate a dialogue where she answers a lot of very difficult questions.
And with that, Annika and I walked to the very community where Greta Thunberg says her childhood was ruined.